Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another round Basis Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Now, there's two cards that take place this weekend, or two cards of mainstream interest, I should say. The first one, Queensberry card, which would be headlined by Liam Davis and Shabazz Masood. And then there is the top rank card taking place in the US, which will be headlined by Robson Conceição and Oshaki Foster in the rematch to their very controversial first fight. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with Queensberry card. There's only a couple of fights I'm going to address on this one, and then there's going to be, a couple of fights I'm going to address on the second one. So without further ado, let's get into the picks. So on the Queensberry card, I'm not going to go through that many of the undercard fights particularly. I do want to give a shout out to Ezra the Cannon Taylor. I know he's taking on a last minute replacement. I think the guy's his surname is like Burmese Stars. Kill Taps, Burmese Stars or something like that. I had to look through the box rec. Funny enough, he's actually got a loss on his record to Ralph Vilkans, who obviously took Anthony Yard the distance, gave him all he could handle in that previous fight about 2-3 weeks ago now. So should be interesting, but I expect Ezra to do the job in style. I'm not really going to say much about that. The first fight I want to talk about is Echo the Engine Esserman against Ben Vaughan. Now Echo is 19-1, Ben Vaughan is 10-0, I believe. But Ben is, I think he's coming from southern area at this point. So Echo's almost being used as a gatekeeper in this fight to see, does Ben have what it takes to basically make that step up. The WBO European title is on the line for this, which obviously will get you a ranking within the WBO, but it's a trinket belt which has no significance anywhere else apart from maybe getting you a top 15 ranking. Echo Esserman currently holds that. He was previously British title holder for 147, and yeah, I don't know, it feels, even though he's got a trinket title, it does feel a bit like a demotion from sort of where he was campaigning previously. But that being said, having seen a little bit of Ben Vaughan, look, neat, tidy, no airs and graces, nothing spectacular, but he does everything relatively well. The basics are covered. Echo is just a steam train. As most people know, he will throw in volume. He will be very smart using that double jab to get into range. He will try to work on the chest of his opponent, get up close, smother them, bully them about the ring, just basically make them work when they don't want to work, tire them out while he's still going. I think he's like 35 at the moment, but he keeps going from strength to strength in terms of the engine. Even the loss that he had was a very controversial loss. Most people don't actually believe that it should have been a loss on the record, but it was just one of those pick'ems. It was a very swing round type fight. This one, I think this step up has come a bit too early for Ben Vaughan, if I'm honest. Yeah, he's got potential, but I think stepping up to someone like Echo, even though he is 35, he's towards the back stretch of his career, and maybe he is that gatekeeper level now for the new crop coming up, but he's going to give Ben Vaughan all he can handle. And because of that, I do see Ben Vaughan essentially capitulating towards the latter half of this fight. I think he may just about do enough to survive. I think it's only a 10 rounder actually. It could be a 12. If it's a 12 rounder, I think he doesn't see the end of the championship rounds. But if it's a 10 rounder, which is what I think it is, I think he might be able to do enough to survive it. So conservatively, I'm going with a points decision for Echo Esserman, and I do think it will be a fairly routine points decision, like a 97-93 type scenario. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that one. Moving up, we've got Chantel Cameron versus Patricia Bagul. Patricia is 17-1 with 4 KOs. I think Chantel Cameron is like 19-1, and I think she's got 8 KOs or 9 KOs on her record. Chantel, obviously former undisputed 140 champion. She's trying to get back to those belts. Patricia Bagul was a former super welterweight champion, which, when you look at it, sounds like it's a very impressive feat, because she's a very slim, slender woman. She came in at the weigh-in today, I think it's 138 pounds, and it looked like she didn't have to struggle to make a 138. So you kind of look at it and you think, okay, how did she manage to get a belt at 154? And it just goes to show the dearth of like talent that does exude outside of 147 and up with the women's division. But looking at the styles of this one, Patricia Bagul is she's very rangy. She's a woman that does try to sort of play the periphery of range with her opponent a bit more. She is normally like the taller, slightly rangier, slender woman. So very rarely, unless she ends up being like the bigger person in the ring, she won't look to really sit on the inside and try to work that way. She does throw very good solid jab. Sometimes she steps into it a bit too far, which obviously can then allow her to get countered if the opponent knows necessarily what they're doing. Now, Chantel Cameron, I think most people know what her skills are. She's very good. She can box. The jab is very good. The hooks are very good. She's got a very strong backhand. But more recently, we've seen her try to employ a lot more of her physicality rather than her boxing skills. So you can imagine that being in the ring, being the naturally stockier woman of the two, not that much of a height difference between the two, Chantel's probably going to look to go in there, not roughhouse as such, but she's going to look to go in there, get dirty, get to the inside, sort of bang to the body, get Patricia unsettled, just basically bully her and dog her around the ring. Patricia, I think, just because of the range that she might be able to get early in the fight, I don't think that she's going to end up tasting the canvas or getting stopped. There's a slight possibility. I'm thinking only because if the bodywork, if Chantel gets on the inside consistently enough, there is enough to say that bodywork could start to take effect. But with the 2-minute rounds, I've seen Patricia in some trouble before, but she's always been able to sort of ride it out, tie up if need be, or just get away with the long strides. So because of the time constraints and the fact that Patricia's not going to just try and bang away and stand on the inside and just stand and get hit for 10 rounds, I do see it being a scenario where Chantel Cameron wins this quite comfortably on points. I'm thinking the rounds that she gives away in this fight, I think she's only going to be giving them away because she's using them to close the distance and get on the inside, and maybe just accepting that she's going to eat a couple of shots while she does it so that she can get aggressive. So with that being said, I do think it's going to be a very wide points decision, like a 99, 91, maybe a 98, 92. If it's any closer than that, I would be very surprised. Patricia's a good opponent, and there's no disgrace there. It's not a gimme fight, but I do think just when you look at the two of them, amateur backgrounds, world experience, level of competition, Chantel is just kind of leagues above. So yeah, I do expect a very dominant and comfortable unanimous decision for Chantel Cameron. Moving forward to the main event, you've got Liam Davis versus Shabazz Massoud. Liam Davis 16-0, Shabazz Massoud 13-0. Massoud is definitely more of the boxer in this fight. He will like to play the distance. He likes to bring the opponent on so he can counter them. He likes to sort of stay at range so that he can then gain that position, time them when they're coming in, and then get out of range before they've got the opportunity to hit back. So he actually does well with people who have a style very similar to someone like Liam Davis, who's not necessarily going to be pressuring on the front foot, but is going to sort of try to set their own work up and box and move. And that's where someone like Shabazz Massoud operates quite well. Having seen him at the press conference yesterday, having seen him at the weigh-in today, what I will say is he doesn't look that confident in this fight. That's giving me a little bit of concern. Plus, in Liam Davis's more recent fights, even though he's not a pressure fighter, he has been able to close the gap on his opponents a lot more effectively and a lot quicker than he's used to. So there's almost like a pressuring aspect in his work. He stays close enough whereby he's got a range that he can catch you a lot of the time, and it's a lot harder for you to then return fire. I think that is going to be a key here in this fight. If Masood can keep the distance early enough in the first couple of rounds and then be able to just work the peripheries and basically nick rounds from sort of rounds, I'd say 5 until 12, then he's got a very, very good chance of coming through this fight and getting the victory. But again, based on what I've seen in the press conference, based on what I've seen in the weigh-in, and based on just the fact that Davis has looked a lot quicker on his feet in terms of closing that range, but also throwing volume, punches in bunches. Even though Masood has got the better amateur pedigree, I feel like Davis's new style definitely suits the pro game a lot more. And I do think when Shabazz Masood gets pressured, he does start to capitulate. He does start to try to resort to a lot of holding and clinching and, you know, sort of time wasting. But I don't think Davis is going to allow him to do that. And I think that come about round 5, 6, 7, in that middle point there, you're going to see a very, very big shift in not just momentum, but in punch effectiveness, especially from Davis. I think Masood's shots are going to not have a lot left on them, and I think Davis is going to have the same muster and stuff that they had from round 1. And because of that, I can see a situation where Shabazz Masood just starts to get beaten up, starts to get walked into the corners, can't really escape, getting battered to the body, long straight shots to the head. And with that, I think that I'm not sure if he gets quote unquote knocked out, but I do think the referee jumps in. So I'm predicting a TKO victory for Liam Davis around 9 or 10. Yeah, that's my prediction. Leave yours down below. Let me know what you think. But now onto the top rank card. Okay, so moving over to the top rank card, there's 2 fights I'm looking forward to on this one. All the others do very much seem like run-of-the-mill fights. I mean, look, Jahi Tucker's on the card, so I definitely want to check out his fight, see how well he does. 12-1-1. He's had a little bit of a rough time in the last few fights, but it looks like he could be getting himself back on track. Interested to see. Raymond Muataya, I can't even remember who he's fighting, but I think it's definitely just a run-out type of fight. The fight I do want to look at on the undercard is Dangerous Yan Santana. He's a Dominican fighter, 12-0 with 11 KOs, and he's taking on Eduardo Baez, who is, I think, 23-6-2. He's only got 9 KOs in his 23 victories, so, you know, not a big puncher, and he's only been stopped once, and that was by who was the one that stopped him? I think it's Emmanuel Navarrete. So he's, you know, he goes the distance quite often. I think in his very last fight, he went the distance with Angelo Leo, who now is the, you know, reigning, I think, what belt is it? He's got the I think he's got the WBC belt at 126 pounds. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how Yan Santana can do with Baez. Now, personally, looking at the 2 stars, I mean, Santana, he's action-packed. He does look for those heavy shots. He looks for those knockout shots. At times, he can leave himself a bit wide, a bit exposed, especially when he goes to throw hooks. The straight punches is normally very correct and technical when he uses them, but he does like to arc those shots in, especially to try and arc them around the guard when an opponent is posting up. In those moments, he can be caught in the counters. I have seen a couple of times where he has been, you know, maybe susceptible to that counter. He's shown a decent enough chin, but that being said, he hasn't fought, you know, the who's who of the big punchers thus far in the weight class of that 126. So look, that part itself is going to be interesting. However, just based on the lack of power by Baez, and the fact that he is very much a person that will sort of try to tuck up, come forward and exchange, to some degree of success, I think he's going to leave himself open to very many opportunities for Jan Santana to catch him, especially if he does open up in an exchange. I think Santana is the quicker of the two. He'll get to him the quicker of the two. So ultimately, I do think that Santana wins this fight, and I think he wins it quite dominantly. I do think he's going to end up being the second person to stop Baez, but I think it's going to come in those later rounds. It's going to be more via accumulation than actual, sort of a one punch bang and he's out. So yeah, I'm going for Santana to win. I think it's a 10 rounder, so I'm going for about round 7 or round 8, so maybe a couple rounds later than when Navarrete got him out of there. But I do think it's going to be fairly conclusive. Now, main event time. You've got Robson Conceição, who is the current champion, WBC 130 champion, up against you've got O'Shaquie Foster, former champion. This is his rebound and his rematch fight with Robson Conceição. The WBC ordered the immediate rematch as they widely believed that the scorecards in the first fight were unjust, and that Robson Conceição was given a very, very gifted decision. I think everyone that watched that fight, no one believes that O'Shaquie Foster lost that fight. He pretty much dominated the action from round 1 to round 12. Yes, there was a couple rounds where he coasted in them, or Robson Conceição threw a lot of punches, but O'Shaquie blocked those punches on arms, gloves, and he even still exchanged and traded back. I mean, I remember watching that fight and I thought it was a clear as day victory for O'Shaquie Foster. So to see Robson Conceição get the victory, it could have only been inadequacy, and maybe a bit of corruption, especially Robson Conceição has been given quite a few title opportunities. Now, admittedly, some of them were deserved, especially after getting a draw with Navarrete in his last one, a very disputed loss against, was it Valdez? I think it might have been Valdez. I know the one with Shakur Stevenson, obviously that was tarred because Shakur blew the weight, didn't come in on weight. So Conceição, probably they felt it was only right he got an opportunity to fight someone who was actually at the same weight as him when they got in the ring. But yeah, he's had multiple opportunities. That did seem like it was going to be his last opportunity, hence why it maybe makes sense that he got that decision. That being said, they're running it back this time, and I'm pretty sure that O'Shaquie Foster is not going to leave any doubt in the judge's mind or any doubt in the fans and the audience's mind that he wins this fight and wins it comfortably. Based on what I saw in the first fight, O'Shaquie doesn't even have to change much. If anything, just maybe he's got to be like 5% more aggressive to rubber stamp those rounds. But I feel like in this one, because of what happened the last time, I think he's going to be going for the kill. And because of that, I do actually think he's going to fight a lot more aggressive. I think he's going to try to sit on his punches a lot more, which yes, could leave him potentially more in range to get caught and countered. But I do think he's going to be looking for a rubber stamp on this fight. So because of that, I do think that he's going to end up winning this fight. He should have won the first. I do think he's going to win the second one, and I think he's going to win it via stoppage. I think he's going to do enough in those middle rounds so that in the back half of the fight, around about rounds 9, 10, 11, he can just sort of start wearing Conceição down. And Conceição has been on the canvas a couple times in his career. I do see him hitting the deck maybe once or twice in this one, and ultimately I think the referee jumps in around about round 11. O'Shaquie Foster wins back his WBC 130 belt, and then on to, I guess, unifications next. That's my opinion. Please let me know what you guys think down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. I will leave it there, but for right now, Spaces Picks locked.